Introduce yourselves. Put your name, your whatever you want to share with us, anything at all. Introduce yourselves into the chat. So much hugging. Yes, there's so much hugging happening in the lobby right now. We're all hugging each other in that virtual space. I'm missing those hugs. Welcome, Stacy. Welcome, Joelle. I'm so excited that all of you are here. This is going to be such a fun day. So grab your bagel, grab your coffee. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in just about a minute and a half. We're so thrilled that you're all here. I see so many exciting names in the chat, people I've loved and worked with for years. What an amazing crowd we have here today. We're going to get started in just about a minute. Welcome. Okay, good morning. I think we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am so excited that you are all here with us today. The numbers are growing. People are pouring into the room. I am just over the moon to have all of you here today. Literally, it's bringing tears to my eyes to see so many beloved colleagues and friends and people who are passionate about arts in schools and creative learning joining us today for the San Mateo County Office of Education 3rd Annual Art Institute. I'm serious, I'm getting a little teary-eyed here, just so tears of joy to see everyone here. Welcome. Let's just take a breath for a moment. Just arrive here in this space together. My name is Michelle Holt. I am the Arts and Restorative Learning Coordinator here at the San Mateo County Office of Education. This is our 3rd Annual Arts Institute. This one is bigger and better and more celebratory than ever. The 1st Annual Art Institute was myself and one colleague here at the county office. It was small but powerful. The 2nd annual one was held at a school site with about 10 guest presenters. And this year we are virtual. We have doubled in size in terms of attendees, and we've doubled in size in terms of presenters. We've got over 20 presenters for you today. It's going to be a dynamic and really incredible day. I'm just so thrilled that you're here and that you're joining us. I have a few announcements and logistics to share with you, and then I will be introducing you to Well, I'll share all of that when I get to it. So the first announcement I have for all of you is that the San Mateo County Office of Education has a visual and performing arts strategic plan that we launched a year ago. The strategic plan itself is in the form of an accordion book. I will put the PDF for the plan in the chat so that everyone can look at it at your leisure. I invite you to look at our visual and performing arts strategic plan. It's there in the chat, and I invite you to communicate and reach out to me and connect. We're always looking for colleagues to connect with. A phrase I learned from one of my favorite teachers, Louise Music, is everyone is invited to the table. And you are all invited to this table today. And you are invited to my table anytime you want to talk about arts in schools. So that's my first piece that I want to share with you. The second piece I would like to share with all of you today is a little bit about the why, about this conference, about this gathering, about this institute. I am a passionate, maybe even rabid advocate for the arts and the importance of arts in schools. To me, the arts are the vehicle. And the fact that there's still not enough arts in schools in California is the biggest equity issue at the forefront of my mind and my heart. And I believe that arts are actually the vehicle that we can use to explore what we're all facing today. We're all collectively facing trauma through a global pandemic. The racial injustice that has existed and the oppression that has existed in this country since the founding of our country, that is woven into the fabric of our country. We are facing a moment of reckoning, a moment in which we need to come together. And the arts are a vehicle for conversation, for humility, for listening, for making meaning. And so that's why I believe we should be having this conversation and why we're holding this institute today. The arts are a tool for resistance, for resilience. The arts are about community. As I said a moment ago, everyone's invited to the table. I'm going to share a very, very short story. And I decided to tell you the story of this piece that I'm wearing around my neck. So a friend of mine is an artist, she's a jeweler, and she made this piece originally, and it had 4 characters in it: myself, my ex-husband, and our 2 small children. Later, she added my 3rd child. The artist, the piece is flexible. The piece can grow. She added my 3rd child. And then later I went through a divorce. I've been divorced now for 9 years. And so she added more people. And now my piece is about community. And the reason I tell this story of the necklace and my pendant is because the arts can take existing material, take existing tools, strengths, assets, and repurpose them. And this is a time right now where we collectively have to grab all our tools and all our know-how. And we've been using the word pivot in the time of the pandemic, and even more so now. We have to grab those tools and we have to repurpose them and reuse them for change. And that change is about, as I've said several times already this morning, it's about community, it's about creativity, it's about connection. And for me, most of all, actually, really, it's about love. And so please bring all your tools today, especially your ears, your willingness to listen, your humility, your desire to connect. I loved what I was reading in the chat earlier about stepping into the lobby, imagining we're at a conference together in person and spreading, as Todd said, spreading our cream cheese on the bagel, or Joelle said, grabbing our fresh fruit. So make sure you've got your tea or your coffee, your journal, whatever way you like to make meaning and process, and welcome to the Art Institute. Get comfortable. One thing we've intentionally done, now I'll tell you a little bit about the structure of the day. One of the things we've intentionally built in is an 1.5 hour lunch break. I encourage you to actually not go and do other work during that lunch break. If you're here with us all day, take that 1.5 hours and go for a walk, or eat some food that you really enjoy, or go make some art, but use it as a restorative time, not as a time to catch up on all those emails. Today is a day for you. Today is a day for you to immerse yourself in an arts experience and to truly just be with that. So we begin with a keynote with Charles Chip McNeal. Then at 10 a.m., there's 5 breakout sessions. Amanda, if you could put 2 links into the chat for me, that would be helpful. One of them is the web page link for the Art Institute itself, where you can peruse where the attendees can peruse the offerings, although I'm sure many of you already have. And the second link Amanda will put into the chat is a Google Doc with the Zoom links. And the Zoom links take you to the individual workshops. So you can use the web page to read about the descriptions of the workshops, and you can use the Zoom link doc to get to the workshops. We're not having people sort of sign up in attendance lists. So there is a little bit of freedom to move between workshops, but we do encourage you to sort of stay and listen and as the workshops get started. So that's a little bit about the logistics for today. We are not coming back together as a whole group. So right now we're a whole group of about 120. We will not actually gather again as a whole group after 10 a.m. So after 10, you'll attend your different workshops. At 1 p.m., there's only 2 options. There's a panel of amazing panelists speaking about the connections between music and social and emotional learning and the equity work we're all standing for today. And there is the Quilters of Gee's Bend presented by the San Mateo County Arts Commission. So at 1, you can choose, and I'm imagining there'll be about half and half. And then during the 10 a.m. time slot, the 2 p.m. time slot, and the 3 p.m. time slot, there are 5 options each with really dynamic and amazing presenters. All of them just have such great resources to share with you. Excuse me. And one last note, the morning workshops are 90 minutes and the afternoon workshops are 60 minutes. So just to clarify any confusion with that, again, take a nice, restorative, relaxing lunch break. Now, it is my honor and my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Niambi Clay. Niambi Clay is the new Executive Director of Equity Inclusion for the San Mateo County Office of Education. She has 25 years of experience in education leadership, including 8 years as a secondary school math teacher in the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Area. As a senior advisor at teach.org, she recently organized and moderated a panel on the impact and importance of Black teachers and the strategies and supports needed to effectively increase a pipeline for Black teachers. This panel, which included former Secretary of Education John King and other esteemed panelists, attracted over 400 attendees. Niambi is also the former COO of Equal Opportunity Schools in Seattle, a national education organization that consults with school districts to close access and achievement gaps in rigorous coursework, specifically in advanced placement and international baccalaureate programs. As the diversity, equity, and inclusion lead at EOS, Niambi oversaw the development of policies to support equitable decision-making throughout the organization. She has experience in equity and access training and has worked nationally to close the opportunity and achievement gaps for students of color and underserved populations. She is adept at collaborating and coaching with all educational stakeholders, including superintendents, principals, teachers, parents, and students. I can go on and on and on about how wonderful Niambi is. She's new to our organization. I am thrilled to be her colleague, to collaborate with Niambi. She is just phenomenal. I welcome her. Niambi will speak to you briefly, and she will also be introducing our keynote. I will be turning my camera off, so I wish all of you an incredible, beautiful day. And thank you, Niambi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm very excited to join you all today to explore this topic of arts and education, and especially its intersections with equity and social justice. At the San Mateo County Office of Education, they have a working definition of equity, and that's providing every learner and staff member with opportunities, resources, and supports needed to thrive in school, career, and life. And I really want to just highlight the word thrive because I believe as creative beings, we need creative outlets and forms of expression to thrive. So I believe, as Michelle mentioned, it's a critical social justice issue of just who even has access to arts in the schools. For me, art is very therapeutic. I use it all the time, but it's also a means of self expression. But I also believe it goes beyond the individual, as you guys will talk about today, in terms of community and social justice issues. And so it is an accessible tool for everyone. Just like music is universal, that's an art form, art is universal. And so it's an accessible communication tool to really raise awareness about social issues and affect positive change. But I think a key piece for me in art and social justice is the empowerment piece. It really allows people to tell their own story. And I think that is critical. One of the big issues I feel we have in this country is people's stories are being told by other people. And so you really have to hear the story from the person with the lived experience. And I think art allows us to do that. It allows people to tell their story in their way, really show their whole, a more complete picture of their community. Um, and even though we're talking about social justice today, I want to just stress that telling your story is not always about, the ills and the trials, but it's also about the joys. And so I like art because it allows you to create a complete picture around the story and then allow people to, dialogue about what that story means for them. So I am truly excited to be able to introduce your keynote speaker today, Charles Chip McNeal. Charles Chip McNeal is an award-winning international educator, researcher, civic leader, and activist, engaging in transdisciplinary practice art forms and genres with a focus on arts, educational equity, social justice, community engagement, and cultural competency. He has over 30 years of senior leadership experience and is an accredited integrated learning specialist, as well as a certified oral historian. A celebrated dance educator, Mr. McNeal is the former director of education for the San Francisco Ballet, where he established the distinguished San Francisco Ballet Center for Dance Education, which engaged over 30,000 people annually through 1,500 different culturally diverse events. He also served as the transformative learning coach, leadership advisor, and arts integration specialist for the Alameda County Office of Education, where he developed culturally responsive social justice curriculum. Currently, he is the first ever Director of Diversity, Equity, and Community for the San Francisco Opera and is believed to be the first Director of Diversity for any opera company in the United States. So congratulations on that. In his role, he leads internal and external initiatives aimed at developing diverse audiences and creating a safe and diverse working environment, amongst other duties. In addition to this role, he's still training, teaching artists, conducting research. He's still advising. So he's a very, very busy man. He holds 2 bachelor degrees and is currently pursuing his doctorate in, let me read this, transformative theory in culturally and linguistically responsive studies and educational equity. That research focuses on the intersection of arts, cultural responsiveness, and educational equity as he devises solutions to the pressing issues of education reform and racial equity in the arts. It is my honor right now to present to you today, Mr. Charles Chip McNeal. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to learn from you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is amazing. Give me one moment here to get all the cameras online. get there.
I did see your screen now.
Thank God for musical interludes. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but we can't see your face.
You can't see my face. You can't see my face.
I think you have to turn your camera on your, there you are. Now we see you.
Now you see me? Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Charles Chip McNeal, and I'm really excited to be here. This is an unprecedented time in this country. It's an unprecedented time in our lives, and we have to come together in new and important ways in order to solve the issues of the day. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share with you work that I've been doing for some time to look at making an impact in education in an important way to address the inequities in education. And so what I'm going to be talking about today is some of my research and, excitingly, my forthcoming book. Finally, yes. People's like, Chip, you should put that in a book. Put that in a book. Well, that is exactly what I'm writing. So this is an exciting opportunity for me to share with you my research. And the sad story is that I began this research several years ago, not knowing how consequential it was going to become, not understanding, not the ways in which this world would change, and this curriculum, this content, this framework that I'm working on would be so relevant to this moment in time. And so I'm very excited to share my research with you and hopefully point us towards hope and healing. And before I do that, I want to just acknowledge that I'm calling from Oakland, California, that I sit on the land of the Chichenyo and Ohlone people, and this is unceded land. This land was stolen. Take a breath, and let's acknowledge that. Acknowledgement of a land acknowledgement is important because it is a powerful way of showing respect and in one step forward in correcting the untold stories of too many indigenous peoples whose history has been erased. This culture, the culture of the indigenous peoples of this land, it's still alive. They're still here, and they demand respect, and they demand resources, and they demand our acknowledgement. I want to say that if you are off camera today or unable to see, I am a Black man who is bald, wearing glasses, with a beard, with a little white streak in it. I use pronouns him, his, and I am wearing a blue shirt with a white undershirt. As Michelle said, we are in these unprecedented times. COVID-19 has laid bare the inequities in our healthcare system, the systemic inequities that marginalize too many people. We have all experienced some degree of loss. We have all experienced some degree of loss. And I want to hold space for that. I want to acknowledge that. And I want to acknowledge that even though I may not know all of those who have died as a result of COVID-19, they are in my prayers because far too many. We've lost far too many. But on top of all of that, so many of us have lost jobs, and we've lost the ability to express and use our art, the thing that gives us so much meaning. We've lost those opportunities, and we're trying to do it through Zoom. We're missing the one-to-one. We're missing the chance to touch each other, hear each other, feel each other, and sense the authentic vibrations that happen when we're in the same room. But we're making it work as best we can. In the midst of all this, we have a racial reckoning. And some people think it's the first time, but it's not. Because the people who have been oppressed, Black people, people of the African diaspora, have been challenging this narrative since the beginning of time. Don't let them tell you differently. We've been challenging this since the beginning of time. This is just one more pivotal moment in a long history of fighting against injustice. I do not have the privilege of sitting outside of that narrative. I do not have the privilege to talk about this racial unrest at a distance. Because I am a Black man in America living through one of the most harrowing times in my life. It is painful, spiritually. It is painful. I want to breathe into that moment. And the waves of this keep coming. The waves of COVID, the waves of the racial injustice. And just when we thought it was just about over, the Capitol uprising. And what did we learn? I'm going to say it. We learned that this injustice that we're talking about is plain as day. How do you treat people of color when they march for justice? How do you treat a different group of people, mostly white, who in fact become insurgents and seek to overturn our democracy? It's interesting and sad, the truths that were revealed in that. And let me tell you, the profundity of that sits with me still. I want to say that we need to acknowledge that Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Let us acknowledge that our world and our communities are not equitable, nor have they ever been. This pandemic and the growing movement against police brutality and for Black lives continues to bring into sharp focus how we must consider these historic injustices and inequities and disparities because they're actually present right in this moment. Our Indigenous communities suffer more than others. Black folks, immigrants, disabled folks, transgender, non-conforming folks, poor and displaced folks, marginally housed, refugees. These are the people we must make space for. These are the things we must consider as we look at bringing equity into our world. This talk I have entitled Emancipatory Pedagogy in Action. Because emancipatory pedagogy is the nature of my work. It's based on critical pedagogy, but it actually takes it one step forward because it includes arts integration and a very important ingredient, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Emancipatory pedagogy in action, because beyond the concept I'm going to talk about, I want you to know what to do. I want you to know how to put it into practice. I want you to know how tomorrow, how you wake up the next day, how to use these ideas, use these concepts as a way to help you to see your work more clearly and to bring a sense of equity to your practice. Emancipatory pedagogy in action. Now, what is emancipatory pedagogy? It is two things. It is both a theory and a practice. I'm going to start with the theory and then we'll get to the practice. But I want to tell you something. What is it? It is something that is about liberation. It is about freedom. It is about social and political rights. And more importantly, it is about freedom of thought. Emancipatory pedagogy is a way of teaching, learning, and thinking. But let me tell you, the missing ingredient, I dare say love. Repeat after me. I dare say love.
I dare say love.
Because this is the thing they have taught us. they have marginalized us. And somehow we have been convinced that if we take another test, that if we create another framework, that if we train the teachers a little bit harder, it'll get better. And what we're forgetting is that this entire educational experience must be wrapped in compassion. It must be wrapped in empathy. It must be girded by passion and training and intention. But let me tell you, the missing ingredient is love. Freire had it right. Bell Hooks has it right. Many of our sages right now have it right. These are the narratives that we're now putting forth because we will no longer accept the situation that has told us that there's no room for love. That education's a business. We're in the business of education. They treat it like a business, don't they? They treat it like a business. But the truth of the matter is, it's not. It's a relationship. It's a relationship. So I asked a bunch of questions. And as I was asking these questions of how can I look at this problem? How can I consider it? As I was considering these multiple ways of asking this question, I came up with one preeminent question. And that question became my dissertation question for my doctorate studies. And that is, what would constitute a transformative, emancipatory K-12 pedagogy that teaches for healing and liberation? A bold question, a bold inquiry for a time that is so needed. I'm reminded of Malcolm X, who after W.E. Du Bois says, education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. So before the pandemic started, we knew there were inequities. Before the pandemic started, we knew that our Black and brown children not only were they not getting all of the values that we bring to education, but they're certainly not even getting the arts equitably. We knew about these disparities, but we must not just hold it as some abstract concept. Let's name it. Let's name it. Let's frame this problem. One of the things is, no matter where you take the test, no matter what you do, a school could be a high-achieving school, a middle-achieving school, or a low-achieving school. No matter what happens, in every single scenario, Black children come in last in terms of the way they rank academically. Now, I have some challenges with academic ranking altogether. I know we all do, right? And the fact that, are those tests equitable? But if they are, to one degree or another, why are our children failing? It's not because our children are failing. We are failing our children. It's not an equity gap. It's an opportunity gap. I didn't write that. Somebody else did, but I'm going to take the line. This is the truth. As we frame the problem, we know that if we look at the systems of education, the way Black and brown children are disciplined, the way they are recognized for their talent, the way they are, the way that they have access to educators who are prepared, it's inequitable. It's inequitable. We have more. We have economic disparities that have to do with how they're disciplined. We don't know it. This is implicit bias at work. This is systemic inequity at work. We also must consider the fact that the economic disparities experienced by Black and brown children is significant and impacts their ability to learn. To ignore that and leave that out of the equation is to ignore truths. These disparities existed, like I said, before the pandemic, and they've only been exacerbated. I gotta watch my time because I gotta go fast. Just read the screen. Just read the screen. When I see those numbers, those are not just numbers, those are human beings. There are names behind them. There are spirits behind them. There are children behind them. There are people behind them. There are families behind them. Let's not accept these numbers so easily. Let's be enraged. Let's be outraged by them. We know now, because of the traumatic event of the murder of George Floyd, we understand about the prevalence of traumatic experience in Black lives. But do you understand really deeply how traumatized we all are and how significantly traumatized our children of color are? This is an outrage. How can they be expected to learn under these kinds of conditions, under threat, anxiety? These are the conditions we must address. And why am I outlining this? Because this is the problem I'm talking about solving. So I'm laying out the problem so we can understand what we need to address. What we're talking about is an educational disconnect. We're talking about an educational disconnect. And so as I thought about this and I researched this educational disconnect, 3 things in modern contemporary research came up. Children must be motivated. That is one of the 3 factors that matter most in terms of their sense of achievement in education and in life. Untethered relationships, that relationships matter, that idea of having a mentor, not just a caregiver, but having someone who's in your corner, who's your champion, that the relationships matter. We've forgotten some of this. And last but not least, culture. Their culture must show up. It must be in the work. It must be present. They must have something to respond to that shows them that they have value and what they come from matters. These 3 elements must be included in any solution we come up with. And so we have this situation where Black kids and Latinx kids and other kids of color and marginalized populations are failing academically according to the records. And they will become a larger part of our population going forward. So what must we do? What must we do? Before I go on, I'm just going to give you one quick thing. What do you think these are? This is a rhetorical question. Don't answer. What do you think these are? Look for a second. Because I'm going to tell you what you already know. These are jobs, professions that did not exist as a professional category 10 years ago. You know where I'm going? Okay, these are jobs that did not exist as a professional category 10 years ago. So if that's so, if our world is moving forward at a tremendous speed, technological advances, global exchanges, the creation of commodities and economics that we've never even envisioned, then what are we teaching for? We can't be teaching them to do a job that hasn't yet been invented. So then what are we teaching for? We're teaching for love. We're teaching for compassion. We're teaching for the ability to do these things. Facts don't matter. When we were children, it was drilled into our head. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. You know what? It doesn't matter. I can Google Columbus in a heartbeat. You can Google a fact, but you can't Google deep understanding. You can't Google critical thinking. You cannot Google mindfulness reflection that lets me see who I am and how I learn and how I'm in relationship to you. You can't Google that. You can't Google that. So that's what we're teaching for. We're teaching for, and this last category here is something new to us. I'm going to introduce a few things that are new. Multiliteracy. Multiliteracy. It began in the UK, and now it's something that I want to bring into the larger discourse. It is beyond literacy. It is not just literacy as we understand it, but it is technological literacy. It is global literacy. It is human literacy. It is social justice literacy. It is all the literacies that make up the understanding we have to be critical, active citizens in the world. You know what? I'm already talking, and if you know me, you know when you see Chip, you're gonna dance. So that was a big, did you like that transition? Okay, so we're gonna dance, and because we're gonna take a breath right now, because I'm laying down a lot of information. I'm unpacking a lot of information. So I'm gonna do a little brain dance, and the brain dance hopefully will get us mind and body ready so that we can continue to sort of unpack these really critical ideas, these critical thoughts. So if you are ready, I am going to turn on my second camera over here should be working. And what I'm gonna do is put some music on, and we're gonna do a little brain dance. Would you do a brain dance with me? You can do this sitting, or if you want to, you can do it standing up. And here I am on camera. So what we can do is take a deep breath and blow it out. Tactile. Squeeze. 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 Genetic. Squeeze. 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 Let's try a tap. Tap. Come on now, tap. Belly, tap your belly. If you're sitting down, you can do the whole thing sitting down if you want. Crack your head, crush. As if there's links everywhere. Let's turn the music up a little bit. I need some inspiration. Good job. Core distal. Core. Make a small, tight shape. Distal. Big and open. Core. Get small and tight. Distal. Let's do that one more time. Round over. Curl your spine. Distal. Open and stretch. Head, tail. Move your head. You make little moves up. Move your head. You don't even have to watch me if you don't want to. Just listen to my voice. Wiggle your tail. Wiggle your butt. Wiggle your butt. Butt wiggle time. How many times do you go to a workshop and people say wiggle your butt? Like that doesn't happen a lot. Wiggle your head and your butt. Good job. And let's do upper body. Just your arms. Good job. Can you do the swim? Do the swim. Kind of like that move. Oh, I have a move for you. You can do this if you want to, or do your own. Try the roll. Body side. I want you to move just one side of your body. Just one side. Other side. Nice. Nice. We're going to do eye tracking. Thumb in front. Do not move your head, just your eyeball. Track your thumb to the side. Track it to the other side. Good. Track it. Track it. Track it. Slow your breathing down. Track your thumb. Track your thumb. Good. Now we're going to go to cross lateral. We want to cross the midline. Come on. Cross. Cross. Last thing, if you can, you're going to turn in a circle. If you can't, okay. Little circle turn. Hold and breathe. That's good enough for me. All right. We're going to leave that right there. We're going to leave that right there. Okay. Okay, this guy, you know what I'm going to do an Oprah on you, and you're going to get to see me from the side. To camera. All right. How are we doing? We're doing good. All right. So what we need is something that is a progressive, student-centered, culturally responsive pedagogy for healing and liberation. And that is the framework that I've created. It has 4 pillars. One is about culture and linguistically responsive teaching. Another pillar is identity. And we need to understand the relative importance of relationship as it relates to developing a learner identity. Then one pillar is arts education, which also goes into critical inquiry, communication, critical thinking. And then last but not least, here is the revelation. One of the pillars of this new framework is love. Love as pedagogy. Love and forgiveness as pedagogy. So I'm basically going to just give you a quick outline of my book. It's not going to be, I'm going to go long because I want to get to something more important. Essentially, what I do over here is I frame the problem. I talk about what I've already done and showed you already is we need to focus and remember that, in fact, what is the purpose of education? What are we teaching for? Are we teaching for facts? Or are we teaching for dispositions, understandings, and capacities, which will help a student not only survive, but thrive in an era of an unknown future? I hope that lays it out pretty clearly. Then we get to chapter 1. I'm talking about culturally and linguistically responsive teaching. I have some incredible people in my life who've helped me to understand the very critical importance of linguistically responsive pedagogy, culturally relevant pedagogy, culture, the meaning of culture and identity in education. But moving on to the second and third pillars, again, we look at relationship. We look at and we come to understand the importance of social construction. We do not learn in a vacuum. We learn in and through relationships. We are a social people. That's what people are. We're social. That's why Tom Hanks, when he was on that island with that basket, with that ball, and he looked like he was kind of like losing it a little bit, because we're used to people. We need to talk to people. We need to interact with people. This is where this is how culture is transmitted. This is how values are transmitted. This is how hope is transmitted, partly, right? Through these relationships. But this chapter, this pillar of the second chapter, the second pillar looks at also looking at how we might create an opportunity for students to develop a growth mindset, to understand that who they are and what they are is malleable, it changes, it's plastic, it is evolving. And last but not least, you know how important in this third pillar, how important arts and creativity is, creative inquiry, dance and movement, how moving the body is, to me, it is inseparable to learning. Because if this is where I am holding cognitive thought, where is this housed? It is housed in this thing, this vessel which I will either love or come to despise over my lifetime. One that I will take comfort in and revel in its amazingness, or one in which I will have shame. How are we addressing that? Multiculturalism, the ability to speak to people from many backgrounds and interact with them in important ways. I want to go on to the last part. I want to tell you, a lot of this work is about neuroscience. This is all based on research. This is not only 30 years of teaching, but this is research. This is 5 years of concerted research looking at the neuroscience of how children learn and how we make learning stick. We must address trauma. We must address and continue to address social emotional intelligence. But we also must look at love. And Black people and love have a strange and beautiful history, because it is what has enabled us to survive. Love is what got us through all of the trials and tribulations of the uprisings over a course of 400 years. It is what makes us stand before you, even in the face of unprecedented oppression on a daily basis. It is love. But in the same way that we can transmit love, we also have transgenerational trauma. We are inherited. Trauma that my ancestors experienced that I'm still holding in some way. How do we hold all of that together? How do we hold all that together? We must look at this opportunity to shift our culture. In this conclusion of this book, I'm going to talk about the way we must look at framing education for a new age. We're afraid to change too much because we have a structure of what education is. Blow it up. I say blow it up. Blow the whole thing up and let's reinvent the whole thing. So you might think, who is this for? This work is for all of us. It's for all of you. It is for educators. It is for arts educators. It is for teaching artists. It's for anybody, right? And here's the thing. Somebody will tell you that they don't have enough money to change education, to do the work we're talking about, to bring the considerations that I'm laying out here. And here's the thing, we do have time, because we have time to build prisons. We have money to build prisons. We don't have time, we don't have money. They'll tell us that, but the truth of the matter is we do. We do. Because guess what? The school to prison pipeline is alive and well. How do we dismantle that? Here's what I want us to know. Last thing, anti-Black racism is a health crisis. It's a health crisis. That's been said by the San Francisco Human Rights Commission. It's now been said by the California State Department of the Health Department, and now the feds are saying it. What this means is all of us are being compromised by anti-Black racism. Any relevant curriculum for the 21st century must address anti-Black racism. It is the scourge that is really undergirding the systemic injustice that we experience in all its facets. We must repurpose education, dismantle colonialism, and restore and renew, because this is about saving lives. I'm going to show you a quick video. Now, having shown you that, you're probably thinking, Chip did a lot of talking about a lot of theory. How does that help us? What the hell do we do with all those words? That's what I would be thinking if I were you. And I've got the answer. So I've got 3 things I'm going to give you guys. How to put this into practice. Because that's the theory behind it. Remember I said emancipatory pedagogy is both a theory and a practice? I've given you the theory, and guess what? I'm going to let you take home the practice. It's harder than you think. It takes more work than you think, but it's worthwhile. The first thing I put together for you are what I call the 5 C's of emancipatory teaching practice: care, community, consciousness, creativity, and critical everything. Critical thinking, critical literacy, critical pedagogy, all the criticals. And each one has an underpinning of how you might approach that. But these are the 5 things I want you to think about in as you do some reflection on this talk today and on the theory I've put forth. But I've got something even better. And that is, I am going to give you the secret to how Chip teaches. This is my process. What I do is I filter everything through what I call an equity lens. And that means these are the questions I've asked myself after I create my curriculum, after I create my lesson plan. This is how I take every concept you have seen me name, every idea that you have seen me put forth, every theory that you saw me just reference. This is where it comes into play. This is how it gets acted out. You create your lesson, and then you ask yourself these questions. Now, you can't ask all the questions, and you won't be able to answer all the questions, nor should they apply to every situation. But if you do and use them strategically, you will uncover an opportunity to reinvestigate your work, to repurpose your work, to focus and be intentional about your practice. Now, I'm going to give you that as a handout. I want to tell you guys it's been amazing to be here. And if I had time, I had another little activity or two, but I'm going to have to wrap it up. But I am going to stop sharing my screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in the chat a couple of little documents. And I hope is that these will be something that you guys can use to okay, it won't let me do it. So they will send you these handouts. And the handouts are the 2 handouts that has to do with the concepts I want you to hold, the 5 concepts I want you to hold and think about. and the 16 questions that a culturally responsive educator might ask in order to put their work into practice. Now, if you want a little extra help, I'm going to give a series of talks on all of this, breaking down every one of those questions and every one of those elements. And you'll hopefully hear more about me when I unveil a new website, which is going to allow me to do a series of talks that you can subscribe to, where I actually break down and unpack all of those concepts and give you the tools you need to put this into practice in a meaningful way. And again, I want to thank Michelle Holt and everybody at San Mateo County Office of Education and all of you for being here and for us taking one step further into creating a more equitable educational environment that supports not only all students, students of color, but that uses the arts in important ways to help create a more healthier society. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chip. That was incredible. We are so grateful to you. I love pedagogy. I'm all over that. And I am so grateful for everyone who's here. Just a couple of logistics. I did put the Zoom link doc into the chat. I'll put it again. It's really just so you can know where to go for your next workshop. It's your choice. We do have one request, and I'm going to actually ask the presenters to share it as well. I'll be dropping into your workshops and sharing it there as well. But we do have a survey. Please fill it out at the end of your day in terms of, whenever you're leaving us for the day, please fill out the survey. We really value your feedback. We want to hear from you. We want to continue to partner with you. And so that's the survey in the chat. And I am just thrilled. So take, just a moment to get some water, bio break, and then join your next workshop. One more big love for Chip. We love you, Chip. Thank you so much for just invigorating. There were so many incredible comments in the chat, so much love back at you, so much gratitude for including movement. Thank you for making this an embodied practice for us. And thank you for all of your work that you're doing, your book and your series. And we are all going to continue to learn from you. And we're all going to do this together, this love pedagogy, which I'm all over. And so thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day. Sending so much love.